bonus chapters. If you are someone who exclusively watches anime, then you are probably not familiar with bonus chapters. Similar to bonus episodes or OVAs, bonus chapters are exclusively sold in manga copies that are sold in stores. It's basically a marketing ploy to get people to buy more manga, and typically they don't really change a lot narratively, but you do get some really fun background stories around some unseen characters and characters that you may already know, and sometimes you'll even get some more insight about them. Along with that, you do get brand new manga art and even sometimes some author notes. And in today's video, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you my top 5 bonus chapters from the One Punch Man manga. But before we begin, there will be spoilers for the entirety of the One Punch Man story across all of its media, that being the webcomic, manga, and even anime. So if you haven't caught up on your reading or watching, just as a warning, there will be spoilers ahead. Coming in at our very first spot, that being number 5, we have chapter 8.5 titled 200 Yen, which was in volume 1 of the manga. This chapter opens up on a very young Saitama in middle school. Now this is something I already really like. It's the fact that we do get to see Saitama when he was actually very young, before he could even one punch anything, and before he was bald. But not only do we see a young Saitama, but we also see a young Moomin Rider confronting 2 bullies known as ripped uniforms, because these assholes rip your uniform apart when they bully you. We then cut to a scene of Saitama in class along with him reading what seems to be math and PE for dummies. So I guess this is like an early sign to show you that Saitama really isn't the brightest in the room, but at least he's trying. Shit, at least we know that when he does try, he ends up actually breaking his limiter and of course ends up one punching everybody. It's also really cool seeing Saitama with hair. He's rocking the MC protagonist spiky shaggy black hair, and it's honestly really cool. The scene then shifts again to Saitama relaxing in bed in what seems to be his room. Now this is pretty mysterious because does Saitama have parents? He never really mentions that at all. He never says like, hey man, I gotta check up on my mom or dad. It's pretty mysterious, but at least we know that he wasn't homeless as a child, because we do know how poor he is. Shit, maybe he's an orphan. But back to the story at hand, because as he's relaxing in bed, he watches a news report about a mysterious monster that the police are having trouble with. So this was definitely around the time way before the Hero Association existed. And not only did they say that the officers were on it, but they also say that the government deployed a very special unit just to stop this monster. Very interesting that we're hearing about this very special unit that we never really got to see. Not only that, but we do get an Easter egg of Saitama wearing a Mob Psycho sweater. And if you didn't know, Mob Psycho is a series that One, the creator of One Punch Man, created. Saitama then eventually falls asleep to the news report going on, and as he's falling asleep, the news report is actually talking about how citizens are very concerned about the gradually increasing appearances of monsters in the cities, and they are demanding that there should be a way to stop these monsters immediately. But hey, later do they know that Saitama was the one responsible for the creation of the Hero Association. The scene then shifts again to Saitama getting berated by one of his teachers, where his teacher then tells him to meet him in the teacher's lounge after school for not doing his homework. Later on, Saitama gets up after school to go to the teacher's lounge to meet up with his teacher, where he is then suddenly stopped by the 2 bullies, the ripped uniforms. The 2 bullies then drag Saitama out to the schoolyard and ask him for his money. Saitama obviously then refuses and prepares to fight them, but he's unfortunately not bald yet, so he gets beaten up pretty easily. The 2 bullies then proceed to loot Saitama's body, where they then call him poor because he only had 200 yen on him. And just as suddenly he says that, the monster that we saw from the news report rams one of the bullies from behind, where the monster Piggy Bankin, who looks like a giant piggy bank, demands the 2 bullies to insert all of their money, including Saitama's money, into him. And just as the monster runs away with all their money, one of the bullies states that now they won't be able to pay for his little brother's lunch, at which point Saitama gets up and chases after the monster. He eventually catches it, but gets knocked out for at least an hour. He then shows up at the teacher's lounge, beaten up and his uniform torn apart, and he also gets shouted at for it. And after being shouted at, he then leaves the teacher's lounge for the day, where then a defeated Saitama starts questioning his future, if he will be able to ever live properly, knowing that he is weak. We then fast forward in time to a Saitama carrying a child on his shoulders on a snowy hill, having just defeated a snowman monster, where the child then asks Saitama if he can beat up another snowy monster. And as he says all this, the manga panel shows an incredibly huge, almost mountain-like snowman monster, where we then cut to a scene of Saitama freaking out, saying that this is bad, and not because of the huge monster right in front of him, but because he forgot to take out the trash on trash day. This is probably my favorite bonus chapter out of the 5 that I'm going to list, mainly because it's a very young Saitama, a type of Saitama that we don't get to see a lot, a very emotional, scared, weak, but determined Saitama. This is a Saitama we don't get to see, mainly in part due to his overwhelming power. And of course, the part with the child on top of Saitama's shoulder is also a very wholesome sight to see. And not only wholesome, but wise too, because this child told Saitama that he's afraid that he might not live long enough and live well with these kinds of monsters around. Saitama then tells the child that there's no such thing as living well in this world, and because there is no such thing, then you must live life however you want. These may just seem like simple words of wisdom or nothing at all to you, but this is very powerful, because in the world of One Punch Man, where monsters are a huge threat to humanity and death is all too common, then the way you should live your life should be however you want, because that is what's well in the end. That is what matters before it's your time to go. Coming in at our number 4 spot, we have bonus chapter 37.8 titled Pork Cutlet Bowl. This was in volume 7 of the manga. The bonus chapter begins with Saitama out on a walk in his neighborhood, where he is then stopped by 2 policemen on patrol. The curious Saitama asks why he's being inspected, only to find his questions rebuffed and is taken in for questioning. As Saitama sits in the police station, one of the officers shows Saitama an eyewitness sketch of a criminal, which happens to be a bald criminal that looks almost exactly like Saitama, except he's a bit more chubby. And as the policemen further investigate and question Saitama, they come to the conclusion that Saitama may be the culprit behind a string of assaults on policemen patrolling occurring in the city. Judging by his unemployment, living in a rural abandoned area with blood on his hands makes him only more suspicious. We then suddenly cut to a scene of the second chief of operations of the Hero Association, McCoy, believing that the police station might be in trouble soon due to the recent string of assaults on them. Shortly afterwards, Saitama is offered a bowl of pork cutlet by Chief Kuma. They were discussing the Hero Association and Chief Kuma's previous partner, who failed the hero exams and joined the police force instead. He threw himself into his work and was eager to serve, but ended up being incapacitated by the mysterious culprit/criminal. Kuma was distraught to learn such a kind and honest guy kept reciting details of the culprit till he passed out, his final message being one of concern for his commanding officer, which only worsened the head of the precinct's grief. As Chief Kuma and Saitama are conversating, the real culprit behind the recent string of assaults, a threat-level demon monster known as Raid Plum, begins to shred his disguise that he used to infiltrate the police station. He states that the reason for this surprise attack stems from hatred of the law that turned him into a monster. His attacks were all out of revenge for arresting him for drug abuse, costing him a job and ruining his life. And out of desperation, Chief Kuma calls the Hero Association for some backup. McCoy ends up answering the phone call, in which he tries to dash the dignity of the police, but Saitama quickly snatches and crushes the chief's cell phone before he could even plead, clarifying that neither heroes nor cops do their job when they are beseeching it, going on to say that the individual on the line was no hero, but Saitama was there and offers to take care of their problem as repayment for the pork cutlet bowl. Outside the police station, there are countless bystanders and civilians, the local news, and a horde of heroes from the Hero Association who were sent by McCoy after he leaked the information to the media and sent out every available upper rank hero in order to further disgrace the police force. However, before anyone can do anything, a lone police officer steps out of the building carrying the monster on his back, and much to everyone's shock and awe, as well as McCoy, all the news channels present at the scene bustle their way into a police blockade, desperate to know who the mysterious officer was that took out that monster. Before anybody could thank him, Saitama had already left the scene, content with having helped the police. When asked by another officer about him, Chief Kuma simply states that initially he was thought to be an unemployed man with no valid address, but later Chief Kuma resigns his opening statement, simply calling him a hero, where it ends off on a skyline view of Saitama sitting on top of a tank looking over the city. What I absolutely love about this bonus chapter is the fact that we get to see the police force involved, and we also get to know that they have some kind of beef with the Hero Association. Sekengar tells Chief Kuma that he thought that the police were going to search some of the houses of the executives. Sekengar also says that the police force considers the Hero Association a threat because of their increasing power. Now, whether this stuff Sekengar is saying is true, I don't know. Maybe the police force genuinely does see them as a threat, or maybe the police force has some kind of grudge or some kind of vendetta against the Hero Association, because they're kind of getting put out of work out here. You don't really see none of these monsters or criminals even being handled anymore by the police force as much. There's also some really nice foreshadowing of Sekengar as a character, because if you already didn't know, we know that Sekengar is quite corrupt and he does a lot of very shady things behind the scenes. Shit, maybe even the police force are aware of such things that go on in the underground scene of the Hero Association. Not only that, but this bonus chapter just contains classical Saitama heroism and wisdom. When he takes that phone from Police Chief Kuma, he says that neither the heroes nor the police do their jobs because someone says, "I beg you." And Saitama's just spitting some facts here. Heroes and police are the same thing. They're both there to save lives and protect. So when someone or something is in danger, you jump straight into actions. No questions asked. I also get one of my favorite manga panels of Saitama here, where he does a finger pistol and he says bang right before he completely destroys this monster. Coming in at our number 3 spot, we have bonus chapter 67.5 titled King's Weekend Like Weekday, and this was in volume 12 of the manga, and it starts off with King at a restaurant where he is seen typing a scene for his video game that he is making. This is when we then cut to a panel of an assassin stalking King from across the restaurant, but not just one assassin, because we get another panel shot of an overhead view of 5 more assassins strategically placed to surround King. As the assassins observe King's every move, because he is the renowned S-class hero, they take extra precautions for their next move. King suddenly then began shouting as though he is warning the assassins while looking at his laptop, and because of this, the assassins then become suspicious and scared. It's as if King is on their trail and knows that he is going to be assassinated. King suddenly then stands up and looks around and asks the waitress to bring him some melon soda. The assassins of course don't hear this and think that King is trying to make the waitress go in the back in order for her to be protected for what's about to go down. While all the assassins look incredibly spooked, one brave assassin gets up and begins to approach King with a weapon hidden in his breast pocket. King, thinking that he is just a fan, asking for an autograph, stops the assassin by placing his hand on the assassin's arm to prevent him from reaching in his pocket in order to keep King's identity a secret. This ends up frightening the assassin along with all the other hidden assassins in the restaurant, thinking that their plan has now just been spoiled. This causes all the assassins to completely give up on their mission, and as we see them all walk out of the restaurant, we then cut to a panel of Saitama trying to get inside the restaurant to meet King, but one of the assassins guarding the door did not let him go inside. Saitama then knocks him out and the others with ease. After this, Saitama just ends up going inside the restaurant to meet up with King, where they both decide to play some video games, in which where Saitama ends up raging and losing. This bonus chapter is honestly just hilarious. It's a very comedic focused bonus chapter. It goes from King just chilling in a restaurant, focusing on his work work to scaring the crap out of some assassins just because the assassins were overthinking every move that King made. Not only that, but the fact that King coincidentally was just shouting things that made it sound like he was on the trail of these assassins is pretty fucking funny. We also get some very classic Saitama humor in this bonus chapter. You know, he goes from very nonchalant to non-caring to having some kind of unfortunate event that escalates to a fight. It's a very good parallel that I'm not sure it was meant to be there, but it's a very good one nonetheless, because we all know that King is a very fortunate person, while Saitama gets all that bad luck. We also get some more insight on King. It appears that he's working on a video game. I guess he's just very passionate about video games. I mean, that's really what he is, you know, just a socially awkward fraud working on his dream job. Hey man, he's just like me. But anyways, this is kind of also like a day in the life of King in a way, because we do see King always try to hide his identity. We see it in the anime and of course in the manga. He's always wearing a hat, glasses, because he's just super popular. If you're known as the strongest guy in the world, you're bound to get some fans bothering you 24/7. We do get some very intimidating panels of King himself. It kind of gives you some really cool perspective on how like normal civilians or even monsters see King because of his reputation. I mean, not only that, but we do get some mystery thrown in there, because we don't know why this client hired these assassins to kill King. Why would anyone try to kill one of the strongest people in the world, and a hero at that? Maybe the client has some kind of past with King. We don't really know, but overall this chapter was a really fun read and I really recommend it. Coming in at our number 2 spot on the list, we have bonus chapter 40.6 titled Lost Cat. This was in volume 8 of the manga. This chapter opens up with Saitama in a cafe where he is given a mission by a Hero Association staff member. Happy that he is finally being recognized, Saitama accepts the mission ASAP before even hearing what it is. The man asks him to find a cat, since he probably has no obligations at the time. At the park, Genos is waiting for a Hero Association staff member. The staff member tells him of a mysterious monster that he kept as a pet, which ran away, and asks him to get rid of it. The staff member tells him that residents of the suspected area of where the monster could be will be evacuated, but he tells them also that this mission has to be done under absolute secrecy. We then cut to a panel of Saitama out on the streets looking for the lost cat Torako. Saitama is given a drawn picture that tells him that Torako has white fur, a blue collar, and is supposedly cute, but is still stumped. The young daughter of a Hero Association staff member is there to help identify Torako, but ends up yelling at him because he was complaining. Yet she tells him that if he doesn't help, she'll get him fired. Saitama then tells her that he doesn't care whether or not he gets fired. After all, it was a hobby at first, and at the realization that she may have to do it alone, the girl starts crying, as a spoiled brat would, which causes Saitama to comfort her, saying that he will help her after all. This is when we then switch to a panel shot of Genos walking down the evacuated streets, noticing a trail of blood, which led him to an alley, and in this alley, he finds 2 injured A-class heroes, Peach Terry and Heavy Kong, who have received the same mission as him, but were defeated by that monster. Genos asks why they were not devoured, and Peach Terry tells him that it was probably due to the fact that the creature sensed his arrival and fled. The monster, demon level Grizzly Naya, or Naya, I think I'm saying it right, is then suddenly seen right above Genos, clinging onto the walls, ready to attack, very cat-like. We then cut right back to Saitama, still on the search for the lost cat, with the girl on his shoulder, which he thought he found, but was told otherwise. He then goes to an isolated area which is guarded by Tank Top Tiger and Tank Top Black Hole, who have no idea why they are guarding it in the first place. The two notice Saitama and become frightened. However, they still tell Saitama that he cannot pass, and that only certain chosen heroes may go beyond that point. Saitama thinks that he is one of those heroes, due to the fact that he was requested for a job by that Hero Association staff member. Saitama, still thinking that it was for his mission, is now in the isolated guarded area. He comments about how weird rich people can be, and notices a cat. Meanwhile, Genos bursts through a wall. Genos notices his master monster and thinks that he was chosen for the same mission as him. When Saitama asks Genos why he is there, he tells him that he is in mid-battle and that his target is stronger than he anticipated. Classic Genos. He then requested Saitama to leave it to him. Saitama then tells Genos to do his best and continue on with his search. Saitama asks the girl about the cat and tells her that a similar cat just came through. Meanwhile, the A-class hero Lightning Genji is seen fighting Grizzly Naya. Lightning Genji manages to stun Grizzly Naya while dodging its attack. He then tells A-class hero Stinger to attack, who then manages to sever its right foreleg and bring Lightning Genji back to his feet. A cracking sound is then heard and two heroes are surprised to find a giant Grizzly Naya behind them. A great roar is heard and Genos notes that the Grizzly Naya he had just beaten must have been the child and that the mother must have given birth after its escape. We then cut back to Lightning Genji and Stinger run from the mother of Grizzly Naya, otherwise known as Mother Naya, and notice a little girl running. The girl who was chasing her cat, Torako, is grabbed before she can get back her cat. Torako is then seen with a mouse in her mouth rushing towards her kittens in the bushes. The Mother Naya appears before Torako, where we see Mother Naya about to attack Torako. But before she could attack, Saitama then appears before the cat and defends it from Mother Naya. Saitama then grabs Torako and kills the Mother Naya with a single punch. The young girl is happy to see her cat once more. Surprised to see that she had given birth, the girl is suggested to take the kittens with her. Saitama then picks up the cat and notes that the job was harder for him than beating monsters, thinking he might not be fit to be a hero. To this, Genos tells him that he had still defeated the monster, which Saitama tells him he was not informed of. Saitama is then scratched in the face by Torako's claws, where he then threatens Torako, and this is when that spoiled brat girl realizes that Saitama is not the kind of hero for normal B-class work. This chapter was a blast to read through. We got to see multiple heroes at work. We even got to see Genos fight. Not only that, but seeing Saitama do something nice and calm for a change is a really good thing to see. Even though it ends with a giant monster being one-shotted by him, it's still really nice and wholesome. It's also very weird seeing that one Hero Association member that had a pet that was a monster that got away, and knowing, I don't know how he kept that giant cat as a pet, but very weird. I also really like Genos' drip in this chapter. He's got a really nice turtleneck sweater on, sleeveless turtleneck sweater I should say, with this cool black upgraded armor. Now coming in at our number one spot. Now remember, these aren't like worst to best, or these aren't best to worst. I enjoy all of these chapters. So although this one is last, it's certainly not the least, and that'll be bonus chapter 55.6, titled Tatsumaki's Day Off. This can be found in volume 10 of the manga. This bonus chapter starts off with a huge rock-like monster causing and wreaking havoc through the city, and as we see civilians running away from the monster, known as Gigakan, begins to hit the classic One Punch Man villain trope of explaining his backstory, where he then announces to the world that he is the ultimate life form and that it is his heavenly duty to wipe out the human race because the humans have been making the minerals of Earth disappear. This is when he then threatens the civilians that he will turn them into mincemeat with one swipe and crush them and tear them all apart. This is where he's then comedically cut off by Tatsumaki, where she turns him into a giant tornado, ripping him to pieces. This is when a Hero Association staff member congratulates Tatsumaki on her victory, where Tatsumaki then starts complaining to the Hero Association member about the Hero Association's over-reliance on her. She says all this while insulting the Hero Association member and flying away. The next day, Tatsumaki receives no duty calls and is told by the Hero Association staff that she has the day off. However, much to Tatsumaki's displeasure, the lack of work leaves her bored. She decides to go after monsters anyways, and she also uses the news coverage as her informant. This leads her to Z City, but the monsters she wished to go after were already killed by Saitama. After this incident occurs multiple times, Tatsumaki becomes infuriated and rushes to the next alert location as fast as possible before the monster can even be defeated. This is when we then cut to a manga panel of a disaster level wolf monster named Hot Dog, who is currently facing off against a low ranking C class hero known as Armored Clerk. And before these two could even fight, this is when Tatsumaki comes in and completely decimates the poor disaster level wolf monster. And after finally feeling relieved, she decides to fly off into the distance. We then get a panel of Saitama laying down on a grassy hill, where he says that it's a great time to take a nap. And along with that manga panel, there are some narration boxes that read that the Hero Association has still not realized the existence of real assets who are bored out of their skull, that being Saitama. Like all the bonus chapters I already listed, this one was also a blast to read through. It was really nice seeing someone else be the main character for the day, that being Tatsumaki. And we also get a lot of insight of how her day usually goes. And we realize that she pretty much does absolutely nothing other than just do her hero work. And the artwork in this bonus chapter is just eye candy. It's really fun seeing all the different facial expressions and the chibi form of Tatsumaki. Not only that, but they still managed to get Saitama in this chapter somehow. Those last two narration boxes talking about how Saitama is truly an asset, one that the Hero Association doesn't use enough of, even though he pretty much solves most of their problems by taking out the most powerful monsters there is. But even though Saitama still does that, he's still bored out of his mind. And I wonder how many heroes really just have no other job than just hero duty. But it's not like it's a bad thing, because in the world of One Punch Man, with all those monsters, you need nothing but just heroes on patrol 24/7. So those were my top 5 bonus chapters from the One Punch Man manga. And to be honest, I got some honorable mentions to list, and I think the first bonus chapter I want to mention is chapter 55.7, titled Sense. And this chapter was also really fun to read through. I really recommend you guys to read this one because it involves Saitama entering a costume contest. But with that being said, let me know in the comments what y'all's favorite bonus chapter is, and let me know why you like it. And if you haven't read any of the bonus chapters, why not? Go ahead and give it a read by either buying manga or reading it online illegally. But anyways guys, I am Amir Punch, and see ya.